A final push of severe weather working on through the lower 48. After that, a major pattern change flips the script through the end of April. Welcome in, everybody. Great to see you on this Easter Sunday. We're having a good one. Hopefully spending some time with family today, and also hopefully dodging those storms, because we do have really one final big day of severe weather, although severe weather could linger into tomorrow with a bit of a sneaky tornado setup we'll talk about in part of the video here coming up. But before we get there, if you haven't already, go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and hit the bell for the latest notifications. Great way to stay up to date. And we are going to get a bit of a pattern change this week from what has been a very active severe weather pattern to something a little bit different. We'll talk about that in today's video as well. I do want to say thank you to our channel members. Appreciate you folks. If you'd like to become a channel member, you can hit the join button down below next to the subscribe button. Alrighty, folks, with that said, let's dive on into things again on this Easter Sunday, give you the latest. A lot of folks have a lot of plans today, probably outdoors. Some of them could get interrupted, though, by severe weather, and all of that due to this big storm system out into the plains. You can see we've got this area of spin currently over Oklahoma, Texas, and Kansas, leading to a big plume of moisture surging northward, kind of a squeeze play, if you will. We've got this big southeast ridge that's pumping flow out of the Gulf. We've got this storm over Oklahoma that's also bringing flow out of the Gulf. So everyone kind of in between these two are getting in on a very muggy and warm Sunday afternoon out there. And some folks closer to the low pressure side of things are going to get in on severe weather that's going to tap into that instability being brought out of the Gulf to the south. So a pretty active day of severe weather. It's been an active weekend. We had multiple tornadoes yesterday. I told you about the potential for that into Texas and Oklahoma. Sure enough, it happened, and I expect more of that severe weather today, although it could be a bit of a mix of wind, large hail, and once again tornadoes, including potentially significant tornadoes, meaning EF2 strength or higher. All right, let's go ahead and give you the latest here from our GFS model and time out this storm system in the mid to upper levels. You can see this is this morning and afternoon. It's not hard to find where the storm is. You've got this very strong area of spin working through the Red River region of Oklahoma and Texas back towards the panhandles. And out in front of it, we've got a classic case of difluence. We talk about this all the time on the channel. If you're new, though, and you don't know what this is, I'll go ahead and explain it to you. Basically, we've got air coming into the storm system from the Rockies, and what's happening there, it's like a ballerina. When a ballerina wants to spin up quick or kind of goes into a spin like we have with this low pressure, they bring in their arms and they start to spin really quickly. Now, as they want to slow down, or in this case, as you're leaving the spin from the storm system, oftentimes what they'll do is they'll spread their arms out to kind of slow down a bit. And that's exactly what happens with the wind. It enters here, closes up, gets tight, and converges, and then it exits the storm system, and in this case, spreads out and diverges. Now you're thinking, well, why in the world does that matter, Gerald? Well, I'll tell you why. It diverges in the upper levels where the spin is, and what that creates is a void in the atmosphere, and that has to get filled from somewhere, so it fills from the surface, and that creates rising motion, and it's that rising motion that oftentimes leads to deep convection and enhancement of severe weather. And sure enough, we've got plenty of that rising motion here over portions of Arkansas, Missouri, into eastern Kansas, eastern Oklahoma, heck, even up into portions of Iowa and Illinois, going to have some of that upper level support this afternoon for severe weather. I'll time it out for you. You can see that kind of works on through, gets up into the Midwest. This is by tomorrow morning. Could actually see a little bit of heavy wet snow in northern Wisconsin, portions of the upper peninsula of Michigan. Not going to get any impacts out of it, but we're getting pretty late in the season to be seeing snowfall. So another little interesting tidbit there with the storm system. And then it gets out of here by Tuesday. Could have a little bit of lingering severe weather Monday. We'll talk about that again coming up in a moment. But generally speaking, today is going to be the peak of it. Now, the latest from the Storm Prediction Center for today's outlook is shown here. We do have an enhanced risk. That's the orange area, a level 3 out of 5 for severe weather potential. And that includes places like Springfield, Joplin. It does get just to the north of Little Rock there, Russellville, Batesville, into Fayetteville, Arkansas, Bentonville, Arkansas, Rolla, Jefferson City, Columbia. So, some pretty high population areas in this part of the country into Missouri and Arkansas are going to be under the threat for severe weather. But I'll caution you, anybody shaded in on the map. You could be in the dark green, you could be in the yellow, you could be in the orange. You have a threat of severe weather today, and that includes St. Louis, Tulsa, all the way back down towards the northern suburbs of Houston, into Shreveport, Pine Bluff, Monroe, Tyler, Texarkana. So a lot of folks are going to run the threat of severe weather today, and this does include the threat of tornadoes. In fact, significant tornadoes going to be possible in that hatched yellow area That's where we have the highest tornado threat today. Again, that lines up with that enhanced risk that I showed you earlier. So same cities, but like I also said earlier, anyone shaded in on the map could see a tornado this afternoon. You could also see a strong straight line winds. I think that'll be a pretty real threat today on the map here. Again, anywhere shaded in, but the highest threat there in red. And then our hail threat today also going to be present, but probably not quite as high as the wind and tornado threat, just due to those atmospheric conditions that we're going to talk about coming up next. All right, let's time it out for you. We'll start kind of with this view in the eastern U.S. and we'll dive in region by region on more of the kind of tornado threat today. But I think this gives a pretty good view of what we'll see this afternoon. Now, to the north, up into Iowa, back into Nebraska, and into Kansas, just some good old-fashioned rain. It's down south here in the pink I'm going to draw that the severe weather threat really begins to materialize, and that will lift north throughout the day. So I do expect that pink to kind of expand further up into northern Missouri, into Illinois, and even into potentially southeastern Iowa by the end of the day today. Now, we'll keep on moving it ahead into time. You'll notice, here we go, by Sunday, which is today, obviously, afternoon, at 3 p.m. We've got a line of feisty storms beginning to develop, moving from Oklahoma into Arkansas. And this is going to be a pretty big wind back, as we call it, meaning we're going to have plenty of strong straight line winds. We are going to have embedded supercells with that, though, that have the potential to produce tornadoes, again, including significant tornadoes. We got a lot of wind shear today. So anywhere in this line that can find a little bit of extra instability or maybe a leftover boundary or something like that to feed off of, gonna definitely have the chance to produce tornadoes. Now that's around 2, 3 p.m. this afternoon. We'll keep it going into around 5 or 6 p.m. This will probably be the peak of it. Again, the good news is this is more of a line of storms, stretches all the way back down into Texas. So I'm not seeing many individual supercells out ahead of the line, at least on the model guidance. Now, it can happen. We could still get a storm that, goes rogue and kind of gets out in front of the line or breaks off from the line or something along that general idea. But either way, whether these are individual supercells or just a line of multi-cells with embedded supercells, which looks to be the most likely scenario, we are going to get embedded spin-ups, and some of those could be pretty strong spin-ups that maybe last for a little bit of time here just due to the amount of wind shear we have ongoing. Again, anywhere here into Missouri, back down into Arkansas is going to be the tornado threat. South of there, less of a tornado threat into Texarkana, and down into Louisiana and southern Arkansas, mainly because we just have less wind shear down that way, but could still see a tornado and some large hail and damaging winds down that way. In fact, I'd say the hail threat's a little bit higher down there than it is further north, just because we'll probably have more instability to work with. That'll make these updrafts a bit stronger down that way. Now, we'll keep it going. By the time we get past sunset, these storms begin to lose a little bit of steam, but could still be tornadic, likely still severe, working through the St. Louis metro into Illinois, into kind of the Cape Girardeau area. And while that's ongoing, heavy rain to the north, into Wisconsin, into Iowa, portions of the upper peninsula of Michigan, back into the Twin Cities, seeing some heavy rain. And you'll notice during the overnight hours here, you begin to see some of that rain actually changing over to a heavy wet snow there into northern Wisconsin, into the upper peninsula, at least the kind of extreme western portion there of the upper peninsula. Not expecting any real accumulation out of this. It'd be more of a novelty overnight event. You might not even notice it if you wake up late tomorrow, and you can see that kind of keeps on working through. Now, we're not completely done. I didn't show you a severe weather outlook for tomorrow because the Storm Prediction Center doesn't have one, but I told you about a sneaky setup potential. Yeah, I've got my eyes on some folks out here into Ohio and Pennsylvania. So we'll get to tomorrow afternoon. Right here is what I'm watching. Now, we've got some storms all the way from kind of the Lake Erie and Ontario area all the way back down into the deep south, but the wind shear will still be high enough for this section up into Ohio, West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York for maybe some severe weather. The big question mark is instability. Do we get some clearing at any point? Does the sun come out? Does that really steepen up those lapse rates and get the Cape values higher than they would be otherwise? That's the question. But I'll tell you, we got a lot of wind shear up there tomorrow, so don't be surprised for maybe PA, Ohio, maybe even northern West Virginia. That area could see a brief spin of tornado tomorrow, or even a couple stronger storms would not surprise me. Rumbles of thunder and just probably good old-fashioned springtime showers south of there into Virginia, especially down into the Carolinas. You can see in Tennessee as well tomorrow afternoon, having some storms work on through. Same thing for Mississippi, Alabama. And that gets us all the way here to Tuesday morning, very early in the morning. Got some good old-fashioned rain into the northeast. No severe weather up there into Massachusetts, Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine. Same thing for Connecticut, Rhode Island, but some rain there during the overnight of Monday into Tuesday. Then here we go, waking up Tuesday morning. A couple scattered showers down near the Carolinas, but we begin to slowly clear out, and that gets us into the tornado threat again. I will go ahead and discuss a little more in depth here. So this is the latest from the model I showed you, the significant tornado parameter. I'll back it up a little bit. Basically, again, this takes all sorts of ingredients in the atmosphere that are conducive for tornadoes, puts them together, and tells us who has the highest chance of seeing a strong tornado today. You can see, excuse me, those ingredients come out of the Texarkana area. Like I said, not super high down here, but notice as you get up into extreme eastern Oklahoma, those ingredients begin to increase and then really ramp up here into Missouri and Arkansas. Not off the chart numbers, but you see some embedded pockets of a 2, maybe even a 3 trying to mix in there. So not expecting a tornado outbreak, not expecting, 20 plus tornadoes today, but we will have some embedded tornadoes in that line of storms that works on through. And I'll mention that could even get up into portions of Illinois. Like I said, extreme southeastern Iowa there, but I think especially into the heart of Missouri, going to have the highest tornado threat today. And then you can see again some of those ingredients try to get up into Illinois and then die out through the overnight hours. And that gets us into tomorrow afternoon, where you can see not a lot going on tornado-wise down into the Ohio Valley. But then you see up into Pennsylvania and Ohio. Yeah, we'll talk about that here in just a second. But before we do, let's break down a sounding for today. This is right over the heart of Missouri as those lines, as that line of storms is working on through. Biggest ingredient for severe weather today by far is going to be the kinematics, or the wind shear. We've got off the chart levels of wind shear, storm relative velocity values getting up near 3 to 500. You only need 200 and above for supercells to become probable. This tells me we're going to have plenty of embedded supercells in that line of storms. The big question mark is instability. This sounding showed about 1,000 joules per kilogram of CAPE. If we were at 2,000 or 3,000 today, we could be dealing with a tornado outbreak, but instability kind of just in that middle of the road to even lower end range. That's going to help to keep the tornado threat at bay a little bit, but still could definitely see some tornadoes this afternoon nonetheless, just due to the wind shear we have in the atmosphere. Now let's move into the Northeast and start talking about our friends up this way. Like I said, nothing from the Storm Prediction Center. Your local TV meteorologist probably isn't even mentioning it, but if you're new, then you'll realize this is kind of a GM weather thing, and if you're returning, then you'll probably know it. I love trying to find the setups that maybe other people aren't talking about so much, so we'll watch it. And again, I'll preface this by saying, not expecting a big tornado outbreak. Heck, might not even have tornadoes tomorrow up into PA and Ohio, but I think the threat is high enough, although conditional, that it's worth mentioning why we have these longer format videos that I can do so. All right, so here we go, Monday afternoon. Basically what happens, and I know I've got it zoomed in a little bit, but this is the leftover cold front from the storm today. It's kind of parked right into here, into Ohio. You can see it pretty easily there as to where we have the convection. So we've got the lift. That's the first question mark. Do we have lift in the atmosphere? We do. Is the model suggesting that that lift will create storms? It does. You can see this little ribbon of storms up here, kind of all the way around the front, but specifically further north I'm watching, where we have higher wind shear values. So if you got lift, the model says the lift is going to create storms. How strong do those storms get? That's the question mark. The model here just has these little tiny little kidney beans, not a big deal, but if you look at the environment that these storms are in, you start to question some things. The first thing is the wind shear we'll talk about. Again, kind of like today, tomorrow the biggest ingredient for severe weather will be wind shear. Like I said, this is up near the cold front, up near the low pressure. And low pressures, guess what? They're spinning. So we've got plenty of spin in the atmosphere here. In fact, again, storm relative velocity values sitting around 300. That's 50% higher than what you would need for supercells to become probable. So we've got that ingredient for severe weather. Our bulk shear value sitting at about 67. That's also more than high enough to potentially get supercells to form. And, I say supercell, it doesn't mean these beautiful classic plain supercells that you see in the summertime. This is more of a kind of miniature supercell setup. We see this pretty often here in the eastern part of the country compared to those big, beautiful storms you see out west. These are more ugly, but still supercells nonetheless. The question tomorrow is all going to come back to this part. This is the skew T part of this diagram, and the CAPE values down here, only about 500 to 1,000. Some of the models have it even less than that. I was looking at the NAM. This is the HER. NAM has basically no CAPE, and I think that's why the SPC doesn't have any outlook tomorrow. But I'll tell you, if we get just 500 joules per kilogram of CAPE, heck, if we get up near 1,000, we're going to see tornadoes tomorrow. We've got ground scraping LCL here. We've got plenty of spin in the atmosphere. Bulk Richardson number suggests supercells. Energy helicity index, although not super off the charts, if you increase the CAPE a little bit, that's going to go up. So I am watching a sneaky little tornado setup up that way for tomorrow afternoon. With all that said, though, I think that's all the main severe weather we need to worry about over the next couple of days. Now let's take a look at what's to come in the week ahead. All right. Well, are you tired of hearing about severe weather yet? Because to be honest with you, I'm tired of talking about it. So let's look ahead of the week coming up in this pattern change that I am seeing on the horizon. Now we'll talk again one more time about what's happening right now. Here's that storm system we've been talking about over the Kansas City area. That's going to pull northward up into the Midwest and up into Canada over the next day or two. And behind it, what happens is just a big old ridge builds in, and that's going to bring spring-like temperatures. Also, it's a ridge in a sense, but also kind of zonal flow in another way. This is kind of new on some of the models. So just kind of classic, flow across the country here, a little bit of ridging in the east above it. This is the kind of pattern that would bring milder temperatures, muggier air, and just not the threat per se, but the possibility of some afternoon storms, thunderstorms, some of which could become severe, but we don't have any major storm system. Like you see up here how we have a big area of blue, another big area here. Those are storm systems. If those were further south, those would be creating a lot of spin and probably tornadoes. But you get more just a zonal flow pattern by the middle of the week. That's more conducive for just afternoon storms just a generally quieter pattern. Again, could still see rain, could still see isolated severe weather. The key word though is isolated, nothing major, no outbreaks on the way this week. Now we'll keep it going, and finally, by the time we get to this coming weekend, about 7 days from now, so again, not the weekend we're on right now, but next weekend, we do get another storm to dive out into the west, according to this model. And then that could return, I think, severe weather ingredients in about 7 to 10 days from now. But the next 7 days, folks, will look pretty quiet for most of us in the country, and we'll take it because we've had a rough start to severe weather season. Any break we can get is a good break. Another way you can look at this, again, this is today's storm. Kind of see how it looks. See how we've got that big area of spin. It's a notable, well-defined storm system. That's why we're seeing severe weather. As we go through the week ahead, you don't really see much of that. You can see maybe a little piece of energy, little short waves here and there. Those could produce a little bit of enhanced lift and severe weather, but no major storm system until right here, again, about 7 to 10 days from now. That could be our next big severe weather maker. But until then, just kind of more of a scattered setup for rainfall and any type of strong storms. See it pretty well on the Euro model as well. We'll kind of move it ahead. This is Monday afternoon, and this is just the week ahead. I'm just going to kind of loop it through. Again, you see, I'll even pause it right here. This is Thursday afternoon. We've got storms. I mean, they're out and about. These are afternoon storms, classic kind of pop-up springtime storms, but you don't see any well-defined strong surface low pressure, no well-defined fronts, just kind of stalled out boundaries and frontal boundaries. So just kind of a classic rainfall. Could be heavy at times. Again, could get gusty winds, could get a downburst here or there. Heck, it is April after all. Could even get a tornado that surprises someone out of, the clear blue. But no organized severe weather threat over the next week, I think is the best way to word it. And then, like I said, by the time we get about 7 to 10 days from now, watch it. Another storm. This one a little more pronounced starts working in. We'll have to watch that one for higher end severe weather potential. The ensembles, the ingredients for severe weather, what do they say? This is through the week. Yeah, not a lot. Again, you see little pockets of chances of severe weather. I will say, if anyone gets severe weather over the next week, probably going to be Texas and Oklahoma. You're going to have a little bit more spin in the atmosphere to maybe get these storms to, be less single cell or ordinary cell, maybe a little more multi-cell in nature, maybe even an embedded supercell in there. But generally speaking, you don't see any huge threat for severe weather. Then we start getting to next weekend, that 7 to 10 day range. Start to return some of those chances out into the plains. We'll watch that. Again, still got time to go, though, so enjoy the week ahead without having to worry about any major threat. Rainfall is going to be something we do see out there as well out of this. Highest rain still going to be into Texas, Oklahoma, Kansas, Missouri, Arkansas. This is including today, so it's going to be skewed a little bit. But you get the idea. Heavy rain out there, but anybody could see a shower or a storm over the next week. Anywhere from the Carolinas up the eastern seaboard, the Ohio Valley, the Tennessee Valley, the Mississippi Valley. Anyone has the chance at rain, but it's going to be hit or miss for some folks. You at your house could see rain a couple of days. Your friend that lives 20 miles down the road might not see really much anything. It's just one of those patterns coming up, and then pretty dry out west as you would expect this time of year, or really any time of year that is. All right, final thing, our temperatures we will talk about for you. And this afternoon, it's warm. We're having a warm Easter into the southeast. Obviously, that's for the southeast. Elsewhere, we do have cooler pockets of air. As we keep it going ahead into time for the week ahead, generally average to above average. This is by, let's get this into Wednesday afternoon. Pretty warm, you'll notice, for many of us. Some pockets of blue. That's mainly due to just some afternoon storms popping up, I think, on the models. But generally speaking, average to above average temperatures. That hangs on all the way through the next week. We get into next weekend. Some of the models as well, a little bit of a difference between the Euro and the GFS, but the Euro does drop a little bit of a cold front or a pocket of cold air into the Northeast and the Midwest by this coming weekend. And though that's still about 7 days from now, so we've got plenty of time to figure it out, time it out, and give you the latest. Alrighty, folks, that's all I got for you on this Easter Sunday. Again, have a good one. Go out there, spend some time with family, and definitely have a way to get those watches and warnings if you're under the gun for severe weather. All right, y'all have a great one. Stay safe, and I'll see you all next time.